Hare Krishna. I hope I am audible. Okay. So we will get started with the Mangalacharan prayers, and then we will start the discussion. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Srimad Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinbandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone. So, I hope you all have the paper copy of the book of Śrī Īśopaniṣad. You should have it. And of course, it should be the one by Srila Prabhupada, not any other, because we will be going into the purports, not just the verses. So, but today we are going to go into the introduction. So this introduction is a lecture by Srila Prabhupada, and it says here, delivered by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada on October 6th, 1969 at Conway Hall, London, England. So this lecture was delivered by Srila Prabhupada on what are the Vedas and the importance of the Vedas, the origin of the Vedas, and the content of the Vedas. So that has been converted into the introduction to the Īśopaniṣad by disciples of Srila Prabhupada, by the BBT, and of course approved by Srila Prabhupada, because when this book was published and the introduction and all was written, Srila Prabhupada was very much on the planet, and he approved all these, this kind of a presentation. So the introduction has 14 paragraphs. Let me check. I have numbered it on my book. Yeah, so 14 paras, and we will go into the topics covered in all these paras. So you can see here in my copy of the book, you can see I have numbered every para and I have underlined some portions which I want to highlight. You can do like that yourself, whichever portions you like, you can highlight and come up with sort of the essence of each para. So that is like a analysis of what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say. So one of the things that Srila Prabhupada, so let me cover what Srila Prabhupada is trying to cover in these 14 paras. So now the Upanishads are a part of the Vedas. So if this is the Upanishads, this is Vedas. So for those who know set theory, you know, if Vedas are there, so Upanishads are a subset of the Vedas. So what are the Vedas? That is the first question that Srila Prabhupada is trying to answer. And this he answers in paras 6 and 7. What are the Vedas? Before that, he spends 5 paras, 1 to 5, in why Vedas. Why Vedas means, why do we need Vedas? So that is the content of the first 5 paragraphs. So I will just put this in a red box. First 5 paragraphs, then 6th and 7th, what are the Vedas? And then we will go forward on what are the subsequent paragraphs, 8 to 14. So let's focus on this part. So I will start the discussion by trying to understand, since most of you are very already familiar with the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, what are the Vedas? So what and why, these 2 topics of the Vedas. What and the why. So let's first look at the what and then the why. So in the class here, we will not go into reading the purport. That you should do on your own. Okay, there's no point in sort of just reading the purport. That would not be just. So I'm trying to give a sort of an overview, but it is not a replacement for reading the purport. And it's not such a long purport. I mean, a purport or the introduction, and similarly we will do with the purports. So what are the Vedas? So let us look at that. So if we consider the entire Vedic, so to say, body of knowledge. So the entire Vedic body of knowledge is divided into 3 things: Shruti, Smriti, and Nyaya. Okay. So Shruti, what is Shruti?
Hearing.
Hearing, that is Shravana. But you are right. The root is the same. Yes.
What heard?
That which is heard, correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what is heard? Now I am speaking and you are hearing on Zoom. Is this Shruti in this context?
No.
Yes, it is Param Karunadas Shruti. That is fine. But in the Vedic body of knowledge, what is Shruti? That which is heard, but that which is spoken by God. Okay, that is specifically known as Shruti. What you and I say is not Shruti in this context. It's not Vedic body of knowledge. It is materialistic knowledge. Okay, what is Smriti? Smriti, what is the meaning of Smriti?
Memory.
Remembered.
Yes, remembered. So that which is remembered, but in this context, the greatest devotees hear from the Lord. They hear the Shruti from the Lord. Okay, they do Shravana of the Shruti, and Shruti is coming from the Lord. They remember it and they explain and elaborate. So explanations and elaborations by great acharyas or great sages. They are known as the Smriti. Okay, and so Shruti are primarily, and I will come to Nyaya, are the Vedas. Primarily, these are the 4 Vedas. There are many other Vedas as well, but primarily 4 Vedas. This has been described in the Bhagavatam. And the Vedas further are described. I'm not going to go into the details. Samhitas, Aranyakas, and most importantly, Upanishads. So like we said, Upanishads are a subset of the Vedas. So Vedas have these components. The Smritis are very important because we are not very capable or very qualified to understand God's words directly. So we understand them through the writings or the, as it is written, explanations, elaborations. We all need the study guides, isn't it? When we are in school also, we needed study guide for everything. Shakespeare and everything. I remember we had a study guide. So these are the so to say study guides. And these are the Puranas, the Itihasas, and the third category is Pancharatras. So we know that there are 18 principal Puranas. The two main Itihasas are Mahabharata and Ramayana. And Pancharatras, like there is there are various Pancharatras describing deity worship and so on. I don't know much details about that, but these are the Smritis. Nyaya is mainly the Vedanta Sutra. Another name for Nyaya or the Vedanta Sutra is called Brahma Sutra. Vedanta Sutras or Brahma Sutras. And these are described, divided into 4 chapters, or rather 4 categories. There are some classifications and all among those. I have a couple of Vaishnava commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra by, I think one is by Bhakti Vinod Thakur and one is by Sri Baladev Vidya Bhushan, and so on. Well, Sri Baladev Vidya Bhushan wrote the most authoritative, authentic Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, Vedanta Sutras. So we will not go into those details, but this is sort of the entire Vedic body of knowledge. Now we can just go into more details about it, but it's not needed. So let me see my notes and see what all I missed. So technically speaking, Shruti is greater than Smriti. Greater means or more important, because Shruti is the sort of the foundational basis. It is the direct word of God, which our great sages and acharyas are elaborating and explaining for our benefit. Okay, so that is one point. Yeah. Okay. Now, question for you all. Let us see, pop quiz. What is Bhagavad Gita in all of these 3? Is it a Shruti, Smriti, or Nyaya?
It is both. I mean, Shruti and Smriti both.
Okay, so let me ask this. There are now 3 choices. It is not Nyaya because we say that it is not
Vedanta Sutras.
3 choices: Shruti, Smriti, both, or none. Okay, 4
I
choices.
think it is Smriti.
Smriti. It is Smriti.
Okay, you are saying Smriti because it is part of Mahabharata.
No, it's spoken directly by the Lord.
No, I think it's Shruti.
Okay, so we don't.
Shruti.
It is both.
Somebody is speaking from the background. I don't.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Mataji.
Okay.
Loud and clear. You're saying it is both. You're the only one looks like saying both.
Okay.
And other devotees are saying other things. So it is little sort of Bhagavad Gita is, as we can see, is spoken by God directly. We know that Krishna spoke it firsthand to Arjuna, but it is also part of Mahabharata, which is a Smriti. We know that. So the correct answer is that it is both. It is considered both as Shruti as well as Smriti. And again, there is no big reason to split our hair on it, but I just wanted to exercise everybody's brain to make sure we are all awake and listening. It's not a very big point. However, when Srila Prabhupada came up with this Bhakti Shastri program, he wanted, or sort of this program for scriptural study for all his disciples and future disciples, he wanted all the things to be included. So Shruti, Smriti, and Nyaya, everything. So directly in Shruti, we have Īśopaniṣad. And why Īśopaniṣad he chose? As you know, probably Srila Prabhupada was very, very well read in the commentaries of Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan. Now, among the Upanishads, there is a sort of a debate whether there are 10 or 11 principal or Mukhya Upanishads. 10 because there is a Upanishad called as the Muktikopanishad, which describes the Mukhya Dasopanishad, the Mukhya 10, principal 10 Upanishads, which are the first one among those is Īśopaniṣad, the very first. So Īśopaniṣad is the most important the Upanishad, which is what Srila Prabhupada picked and wrote his commentary on. And then there is the Kenopanishad, Kathopanishad, Prashnopanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, and Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. So these are the 10 Mukhya Upanishads. Now, Adi Shankaracharya, who lived about 2000 years ago, wrote commentaries on these 10 principal Upanishads. Now, there is a debate whether he wrote the commentary on another 11th Upanishad known as the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. I'm sure you're familiar with that because Srila Prabhupada quotes heavily from that. But many of his followers do not accept that he wrote a commentary on it, and I'm not sure whether it is available or not these days. But the point is that in one of the most important works of Sri Adi Shankaracharya was his commentary on Vedanta Sutra, and he refers to his commentary on Shvetashvatara Upanishad in his commentary to Vedanta Sutra. So we know he wrote a commentary, and why it is a sort of a little controversial topic is because Shvetashvatara Upanishad describes in detail the personal form of God and his energies. Okay, so for example, he describes the Brahman as the energy of Krishna, which makes it a subordinate. Brahmano hi pratishtha aham. Bhagavad Gita 14.27 clearly says that. So this is becoming a sort of a, stumbling block for the impersonalists. So they deny. We will see this in the understanding of the cheating propensity and all that. They deny, Adi Shankaracharya never wrote a commentary on Shvetashvatara Upanishad. How could he? That is a personalist Upanishad. But that is not correct. So there are considered to be actually 11 principal Upanishads, which includes the Shvetashvatara Upanishad as well. Okay. Now, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan also wrote commentaries on all these 11 Upanishads. I don't know how it is, but I have heard a lecture where it is said like that. But the only commentary available is on Īśopaniṣad. The remaining 10 are lost or not available. So anyway, the most important one being Īśopaniṣad, that is available. So Srila Prabhupada has come up with this program of Bhakti Shastri and Bhakti Vaibhav, and Īśopaniṣad is included in Bhakti Shastri. On the Smriti aspect, we can include Bhagavad Gita, even though it is Smriti and Shruti, but that is we can consider for this, depending on our convenience, we can choose Bhagavad Gita here or there. No harm in that. You should not do that in other cases based on convenience, but in this case we can do. And Nyaya. So what is Nyaya? Logic. Vedanta Sutra, but where is it in Srila Prabhupada's Scriptural Study Program? Scriptural Study Program, which consists of Bhakti Shastri and Bhakti Vaibhav. And also it consists of Bhakti Vedanta and Bhakti Sarvabhauma. But where is Nyaya here?
Nectar of devotion.
No, not Nectar of Devotion. I mean,
Brahma Samhita or
Brahma Samhita is not a part of the Scriptural Study Program of Srila Prabhupada. It is definitely, he highly recommended or he used the Brahma. He did not write personally the commentaries, purports on Brahma Samhita, because Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, his guru, already wrote English commentary on it. So there was no need for him to override it or repeat it. But Brahma Samhita is a standard textbook which we all use. That is true, but it is not part of Bhakti Shastri Bhakti Vaibhav. So I see that in the chat, Sai Prabhu has given the right answer. Srimad Bhagavatam. Why is that? So this brings out why I'm bringing out this point is because according to Sri Vyasadeva himself and according to all the Guru Parampara, Srimad Bhagavatam is the Vaishnava commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So it is a commentary, it is an explanation / elaboration of the Vedanta Sutra. So let us do a 1-minute discussion on what is the Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra are highly encoded aphorisms. Aphorisms means just like one word or two words. It's not even a full sentence. Just one or two words generally. And you have to make sense out of it. It is like a aphorisms. It is like a puzzle. Okay. And therefore, the purpose of Vedanta Sutra is to give food for thought for the Jnanis. The Jnanis are the ones who consider themselves very, very intelligent, very smart, very whatever. And these people, like, today's intelligent people, they always like puzzles. And, if they are not working on any puzzles or anything like that, they become that's their relaxation. I happen to know a few such people who want always to solve puzzles to relax. So if that is true now, it definitely was true at that time. And Vedanta Sutras are given for those people to try to crack the puzzle, to try to understand the deep meanings of these sutras. And we all know, anybody knows any one Vedanta Sutra?
Tattvamasi.
Tattvamasi, okay. Which is the first one? I know the first and the last.
Aham Brahmasmi.
Aham Brahma Asmi, that is one more. Which is the first one? I don't think Aham Brahmasmi is a Vedanta, is a sutra. I may be wrong. The first one, Srila Prabhupada, yes, somebody?
Om Tat Sat Prabhuji.
I'm not sure about that. Again, I'm not an expert on Vedanta Sutra. But the first one is Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Srila Prabhupada quotes that so many times, that Atato Brahma Jigyasa. From the Sanskrit, you can understand Atato means therefore Brahma Jigyasa. Therefore, you should need to have curiosity about the Brahman. Okay, therefore is never the starting point of a sentence, right? Have you ever seen a fresh sentence or a fresh book starting with therefore? How does it make sense? Therefore has to be preceded by something else. Therefore is more like a conclusion. So you're left wondering, therefore what? And the answer is, therefore means because you have a human body or a human life, therefore the purpose of human life is to inquire about the absolute truth. Don't waste your human life, inquire about absolute truth. Anyway, and the last one is, I'm forgetting. Anavrittihi shabdat, anavrittihi shabdat. The same thing is repeated twice. So again, there is deep discussion about why it is repeated twice, and it's one is can be sent for emphasis and so on. And anavrittihi shabdat, anavrittihi means does not come back. Shabdat means according to shabda pramana. So what it means is after going to the spiritual world, one does not come back. And Bhagavad Gita also says, Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhamam paramam mama. That after going there, one never returns, and that place is my dham. One who goes to my dham never returns. Anyway, so those are the Vedanta Sutras, and very difficult to understand. The point is extremely difficult to understand, and therefore only through Acharya commentaries, either the Jnanis are able to, think about it in the cave or in the Himalayas, and they just think about it and are able to understand. One in a million, one in a billion can make sense out of all of them, put it all together, because there are many apparent contradictions in the Vedanta Sutras. How to make full sense out of those is a big task. And those who figure out become self-realized. They become the Jnanis. But therefore, that is called as a very painful process, full of klesha and dukkha. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, klesho adhikataras, like there is extreme hardship or hard labor or misery in this process of jnana. So that is therefore we can only understand Vedanta Sutra through the commentaries of the Acharyas. But Vyasadeva gave the Srimad Bhagavatam as the most elaborate commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So the point is that the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam are not different from the teachings of the Vedanta Sutra. They are 100% consistent and are explained in a very easy to understand, very sweet and relishable manner, as you all have read Srimad Bhagavatam to some extent, and very sweet, very easy to understand. Nobody says, oh, I sat in a Bhagavatam class and I didn't understand anything. So very nicely it has been explained, in the conclusions have been explained. Now, but some acharyas write commentaries, and in the Gaudiya Vaishnava parampara or the lineage, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan has written detailed commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, and there is a beautiful story about it where Raja Jai Singh wanted the commentary. Or anyway, that story has been told many times about how Baladev Vidyabhushan ji was tasked with writing the commentary to save the credibility of the Gaudiya Vaishnava parampara or the Gaudiya Vaishnava sampradaya. And Shri Govindji, the deity of Shri Rupa Goswami, personally dictated the commentary to Baladev Vidyabhushan. And within 3 days or a week or some very short time, other acharyas took a whole lifetime to write commentaries. Here, Baladev Vidyabhushan ji, within 3 days, presented the commentary. And it was perfectly accepted by all the other sampradayas, and Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya became firmly established as a bona fide sampradaya, at least in the time of turmoil or crisis when it was being challenged. It was not that it wasn't a bona fide sampradaya before, it was always that, but one can always challenge. And, the motion passed, so to say, the no confidence motion or whatever you can call. So that is the Nyaya part of Srila Prabhupada's study program. Then the nectar of instruction and nectar of devotion. So basically the Bhagavad Gita and the Īśopaniṣad, one of the purposes they solve is to give an understanding of the fact that, okay, let me break it down. The Īśopaniṣad gives an understanding of the identity, not identity, the presence of the Supreme Lord. Isha or Ishvara. So the presence of Ishvara or the presence of Ishvara sort of shortened is Isha, means Bhagavan. So the presence of a supreme authority. The Bhagavad Gita gives us the identity of the Isha as being equal to Krishna. Bhagavad Gita gives a name to the Ishvara as Krishna, and also gives a little bit on the process of bhakti. It establishes bhakti very clearly. Don't get me wrong. Bhagavad Gita clearly establishes that bhakti is the process to reach that Ishvara whose name is Krishna or who is Krishna. So the process is bhakti, but the details of the process, okay, I know bhakti is the process. Now, what should I do within bhakti? That process of bhakti is very clearly explained in Nectar of Instruction and Nectar of Devotion. The process of bhakti. Of course, the Nectar of Devotion goes more deeper than just the process of bhakti. It goes into the rasas and all. But the first 19 chapters, we will cover only chapter 1 to 19, which is known as the Eastern Ocean. It is a Sindhu ocean, Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. It's a Sindhu means an ocean of Bhakti Rasa Amrita, the nectar of Bhakti Rasa, the nectar of Bhakti, the juice. The Rasa of Bhakti's Amrita, it's an ocean of it. So ocean has, 4 sides: eastern, southern, western, northern. The Eastern Ocean focuses on the process of bhakti. The remaining one focus on other aspects. And Nectar of Instruction very deeply focuses on process of bhakti. Very deeply. And everything is in Nectar of Instruction action oriented. Not only action oriented, prescription oriented. Prescription to do and to avoid. The do's and don'ts. Everything, the first 3 verses itself are do's and don'ts. Right? So, vacho vegam, krodha manasa vegam. So, giving up the don'ts. So, all that. Okay. So, this is how the program is organized. Okay. Let me see in my notes what I have missed. Yeah, one thing. So when we say Vedanta Sutra is Nyaya, Nyaya can mean, it doesn't mean, what is the English translation of Nyaya? Let me see.
Justice.
Justice, very nice. But that is not the meaning of Nyaya in this. Nyaya Shastra doesn't mean justice, or it is not like the law of karma. Vedanta Sutra is far from it. Like, oh, if you do this, you will get this punishment. If you do this, you will get that punishment. It's not the law book or the justice book. Nyaya in this case means logic. So how to understand the spiritual knowledge in a way that you can rationalize it, in a way that you can put it together through some rules of logic. So, those, for example, in today's modern science, mathematics is the ultimate science of logic. It's all logic. It starts with very simple things. If you take the first sort of, of course, at a university level, a first level math class is called as analysis. And they spend 2 lectures, which means like 2 hours, something proving that if A equal to B and B equal to C, then A equal to C. Now you will think that this is obvious. If A equal to B and B equal to C, then A is equal to C. What is so hard in it? But they take 2 hours to analyze this, and you will get a headache. So that is what happens when you read Vedanta Sutra. Anyway.
Is this the logic of Shruti and Smriti, or logic of what?
Yeah, logic of spiritual knowledge.
Okay.
Whatever it may be, the entire spiritual knowledge. Okay. Okay, let's see.
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you say Smriti, it is elaborating the Shruti, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it's like, for example, in Bhagavad Gita book, we have Prabhupada writing the purport. So it's like the purport for the shloka. It's like that, is it?
Well, I did not fully understand what you meant, but smritis are very specific. So Srila Prabhupada's purports cannot be called smritis. Smritis are the 18 Puranas, the Itihasas, and the Pancharatras. These are the smritis, but these are themselves elaborations of the Vedas. So all the basic points in the Vedas are elaborated. For example, just as an example, one of the points we will see in the Upanishad itself, the first mantra itself, Isha Vashyam Idam Sarvam, which you have to, the first mantra of the Īśopaniṣad, which you have to memorize, talks about how you should not take away somebody else's share of property. So it says, Tena Tyaktvena Bhunjitha, means that you should only use or accept Bhunjitha, Tena Tyaktvena, that which is yours, not somebody else's. The next line says, Ma gridha kasya svit dhanam. Don't try to take the dhana which is meant for somebody else. So this is a very short, of course it's obvious. This one is obvious because we are all taught to not steal, not lie, be, whatever. We are all taught in school. Īśopaniṣad is also teaching at that level one thing, but Mahabharata is a big explanation on that. How Duryodhan usurped the kingdom, did all these things, and then what happened to him. That whole, it's the one of the finest texts of dharma. Not just this aspect, but thousands of concepts of dharma are described and elaborated and explained with example in Mahabharata. So like that, you can understand it's a commentary or a elaboration with examples, with historical examples, so to say, of the Shruti. So I hope that helps. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Puranas, Bhagavat Purana, for example, so many, stories are there, which like, for example, when you think of something at the last moment of your life, you get that kind of body. The whole story of Bharat Maharaj is demonstrating that. And many other things, but one of the big things it is demonstrating that at the end of his life, he thought of the deer, so he got the body of the deer. So these are the elaborations of that.
One question. Is there a commonality of stories between Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Purana?
Bhagavat Purana and Srimad Bhagavatam are the same thing.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
Same name, different name.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so we are running a little bit behind. I wanted to. So this whole discussion started with why Vedas and what are the Vedas. So I think we have covered nicely what are the Vedas. Now comes the very important point, why we need Vedas. So the answer to that is Srila Prabhupada gives this very nice point. One second. So let me see here how much is left. Yeah. Not too much. I think we can cover it in 15-20 minutes. So we started at around 6:15 officially, but 6:20-25 we started the discussion. We should be able to finish it. So why do we need the four Vedas? Or why, sorry, not four Vedas. Why Vedas? Or when you say Vedas, it just doesn't mean Vedas, it means Vedic knowledge. Why do we need Vedic knowledge? And the reason is because as jivas, in a material body, we have 4 defects. And you must have heard this many, many times. So what are the 4 defects? What is the first one in sequence, please?
Kam, Krodh, Matsar.
No.
Birth,
Birth, death.
death, birth, old, disease, old age, death.
No.
No.
Anything that has 4 number, you
Physical-
cannot just say anything. Oh, I remember 4. That way you can say 4
Physical-
Vedas also are the 4 defects. So anything that has 4, list of 4 things, you cannot just say.
Physical defect, mental defect,
Huh?
physical defect, mental defect, spiritual defect.
No. Okay.
Imperfect
One
imperfect
is Mrityu.
senses.
Yes. Medha Mataji is on the right track.
First is Dukh.
No.
As jivas, we
Don't
are-
speculate.
we are
Don't
Dukh.
speculate. Don't speculate. You cannot manufacture the answer right now. If you know it, say.
Cheating propensity.
Yes, that is the third
Yes,
one.
that is another.
That is the third one. That is known as vipralipsa.
Making mistakes.
So the first one is bhrama. Bhrama. Not Brahma, but Brahma. Okay. Just want to be sure. Bhrama. Bhrama means the propensity to make mistakes. What is the next one? So this is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita at 2 places by Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. In Adi Lila 2.86 and then again in Adi Lila 7.107. And 2 important points I want to mention specifically about these 2 verses. But anyway, if you want, you can look up. So what is the next one? Bhrama. Then
Imperfect senses.
yes, the Sanskrit of that is, no, the imperfect senses is, karana or karana, apatara. So karana apatara means imperfect senses. And I would like to say limited senses. Not imperfect, but limited senses. Our senses are limited. The second one, so let's go in sequence. First is the propensity to make mistakes. The second one is called pramad, which is the propensity, or the one is the human being is subject to being illusioned. Vipralipsa is propensity for cheating. And the fourth one is one has limited senses. So let's make little sense out of this. So propensity to make mistakes, which means that you cannot get everything right. There will always be some mistake or some situations you cannot be right or cannot be accurate or precise 100% of the time. That is the meaning of propensity to make mistakes. So let us say that an example of this is you see somebody one man beating another man. Okay. What will be your conclusion? A is beating B. What is your conclusion? Who is good and who is bad? I'm just saying, don't overanalyze. Just on the spot, what will you think?
Beater is good. Beaten
Beater
is
is
bad.
good.
Beaten is bad.
Good and the guy beating is bad.
The victim is good, and the one who is beating is the bad guy. Why should anybody beat anyone? If you are a little bit of a sensitive dharmic person, you don't believe in violence, you believe in ahimsa, and then you will say, why is somebody beating someone? But maybe there is a good reason. So you can make mistake. So that is called making mistake. Are you following me? If you don't know the full picture, you just jump to conclusion. So you can make mistakes. All right. Second point, the difference between this and illusion. Illusion is deeper. So please try to understand this. I have spent a lot of time thinking about it, reading about it, and hearing from devotees about it. So this is sort of the essence of these points. Illusion means, let us say somebody is, you see a very, you know that you respect or you have a very respectful person in mind. Okay. And you see that person beating someone or doing some abominable activity. Somebody you highly respect. Then what will you think? Then what will you think? Let us say he is beating someone. You will think, yes, Saloni Mataji, you are raising your hand.
Prabhuji will automatically think, जिसको मार पड़ रही है, that person must have done something bad, इसीलिए ये मार रहे हैं उन्हें.
Exactly right. You will be unwilling to accept that this such a respected person is or can do anything bad. Your intelligence is unwilling to accept that. Your senses are telling you he is beating this other person. So definitely he is bad, but your intelligence rejects that. So in bhrama, what happens is your senses are fooled. Now, I'm not saying that what is reality, what is not. We are not, I'm just giving a very hypothetical example, okay? So your senses are fooled. Senses means including the mind. Mind is also a sense, if you know from Bhagavad Gita, right?
Being judgmental.
Pramada means your intelligence is fooled. Okay? Your intelligence is fooled. You are unable to accept. You are seeing everything. And let's say you know the whole story, but you say, no, it's not possible. It is just not possible. I have done the full analysis, but I cannot agree. I cannot just accept it. It's too hard to accept. You know the whole picture. It's not like you just see him beating him, but you know the front and back, you know the history, you know what happened before, you know the whole thing, but you just cannot accept it because you're, everything that you know from before, from the historical, the whole context, you just cannot accept. You think always there must be something wrong. Kuch na kuch, something I am missing. You just tell yourself, I am missing something. There must be something missing. Now, vipralipsa is even higher. Your ego, your ahankar is fooled. What this means is that, let us say you know everything and there is no illusion, there is nothing, but you are so invested in that particular idea that even if everything is told to you, you will then cheat. You will say, no, he is right. Like, let us say a judge, his son is one of the criminals. The whole case is black and white. The son is the criminal. Everything has been proven. There is no mistake. Assume. Of course, there could be mistake, but assume there is no mistake. There is clear evidence. There is no illusion. There is nothing. Finally, if the judge is corrupt, what will he do? He will cheat. He will say, no, I declare that my son or whoever, this person you are calling criminal is free. He did not commit any mistake. So, because you are so invested in it, and there are very good examples of this in real world, like the scientists who are, and Srila Prabhupada talks about this, the ones who are invested in the theory of Darwinism, evolution. They have spent their whole career into that understanding, and how can they walk back now? It will hurt their ego. Like, that is the Ravan mentality. When Kumbhakarna says to him that, this is Bhagavan Ram, at a moment he accepts, yes, this is Bhagavan Ram. I cannot be victorious, but I'm so much invested into the war now. How can I walk back? I will just go forward. Same thing, Dhritarashtra also. When Bhishma Pitamaha was killed, Bhishma, like the invincible, absolute invincible. I have read the direct verses of Mahabharata. He acknowledges that, yes, Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan, and Yatra Yogeshwaraha Krishna. Wherever there is Krishna, there will be victory. But I am so invested in it that I cannot call off the war. He had the power to call off the war, saying, stop, done. He was the king. And he could have saved his sons. He did not do that because he said, now I'm just so far into it, let it happen. So that is known as the cheating propensity. So in the case of the scientists, I was saying the evolutionists, there are many evidences that have been presented to them where like a human made a pot or some kind of a carved vessel was found or dug up. According to radiocarbon dating, it is 10 million or 20 million years old. Now, how do you fit this with the theory? Only a human can create that carving, and there were no humans 20 million years ago, according to the theory of evolution. So what they do, they either bury the evidence, that evidence as if it doesn't exist. Paper will be trying to be published in a peer-reviewed journal. They will not let the paper be published. Or they will doctor the evidence, change the evidence, and then publish the paper and say, see, or if the paper is published, they will publish a counter paper. No, we did a second experiment. There was some error in the previous one. The radiocarbon dating was wrong. It is actually 20,000 years old. And we all know humans were there 20,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, before the Egyptians or whatever, Macedonians and this and that. So they would, all cheating propensity is going on. And Sadaputa Prabhu and Drutakarma Prabhu have written extensively about this in their book, Forbidden Archaeology. That whole book itself was being prevented from being published. BBT publishes that book, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. Srila Prabhupada said, I will publish the book. You write it, I will publish. Don't worry about external publishers. So that is cheating propensity. It goes on so much because your ego is so much invested into it. How can you walk back? How can today's scientists accept that there were humans 10 million years ago? The whole theory of evolution will be scrapped. They're so invested into it. The ego will be so badly hurt, they cannot. So you cheat. There is a very nice statement somebody made, a satirical statement. He says, I have already made up my mind. Don't confuse me with the facts. So, that is the mood of the vipralipsa people, that they have already made up their mind. They don't need facts. Anyway, and then finally, on top of all this, even if there is no illusion or the senses are not fooled, the intelligence is not fooled and the ego is not fooled. Let us say you are completely open-minded, which means you're honest. 100% in corporate language, we call this intellectual honesty. In some class recently, I was talking about it. Intellectual honesty, you're 100% intellectually honest. Then you still have the fourth defect, which is limited senses. So today, if you are asked, such a person, a completely open-minded person, this is an open-minded person, a completely intellectually honest person, he's asked, does soul exist? What will he say? I'm intellectually honest, but show me the soul. Show me some evidence, whether it is 10 million years old, 100 million, 10,000, whatever, show me some evidence. Our senses cannot perceive the soul. Bhagavad Gita says that the soul cannot be perceived. So he will say, soul doesn't exist. Hey, I'm being honest. I'm being perfectly honest, but show me some evidence. I have no ego. If you show me the evidence, I will believe it. So he's being honest, But our senses are limited. Soul is not something which is three-dimensional. There have been experiments conducted. They put a dying man on a weighing scale. Just before he was dying, there was some weight. Just after he died, the weight didn't change. It was exactly the same. They say, oh, so he died. So must be, if there is a soul, it must have left the body and the weight didn't change. So there is no soul. So you do counter experiments. Honest. There is no dishonesty here. There is no mistakes. There is no illusion. It is a very, $10,000 scale, very accurate, precise scale. Nothing wrong with it. But soul does not have a weight. You are trying to measure something. It's like I'm trying to measure how happy you are by your weight. Oh, the more heavier you are, the more happy you are. That's not a sensible unit to measure something like that. So our senses are limited. Even if we want, we cannot measure some of the things. So like that, finally, so the point is, Vedas are needed. Sorry, not we. Vedas are needed to give us ultimate truth, even that which we cannot perceive. So it is not saying that everything that you can perceive is wrong or false. No. Srila Prabhupada is not saying that. No Acharya says that. It is real, but there are things which you cannot perceive. And for those things, you have to go to the Vedas. Like, who is Bhagavan? Is there Bhagavan? And all those kind of things. So then we come to the discussion of 3 types of evidence. You must have heard about it. But before this, I think, Anjana Mataji, you had your hand raised for a while. Was your question answered, or did you get tired of holding your hand?
No, Prabhuji, the third point that we discussed, the defects, is it the ego or like true ego or a false ego?
False ego. I should have mentioned. I said ahankar, which means false ego.
So I was kind of a little confused on that.
Ahankar is false ego. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's correct. But propensity for cheating, how we are fooling the false ego? We are fooling the true ego. I mean,
no. True ego is I am a servant of Krishna. That is true ego. You have the ego. I am servant of Krishna. Come, try to do whatever you want. I will not give up my service to Krishna. That is ego. It's an egoistic statement, but it is true ego. False ego is just what we naturally call as ego or ahankar. And ahankar is impacted when you have to let go of your ahankar, right? Because you have invested so much into a particular thought or idea to walk back from it. All the evidence is black and white in front of you. And now seeing everything, the right thing to do is to walk back your track or walk back your words. Give up your idea, your attachment to your idea. And that giving up that attachment to your idea is a matter of ahankar. The ahankar will be impacted. You झुकना पड़ेगा थोड़ा, हार माननी पड़ेगी.
Okay.
You have to accept defeat as a matter of, at least for the purposes of that idea. And that is your ahankar will be, ahankar ko bahut ठेस पहुंचेगी.
Judge and his son example is the best one. Judge and his son, criminal son.
Yeah.
Judgment that was a fitting one.
So, to uphold your idea and therefore not have to walk back, you cheat. Judge can alter the evidence also.
I think I got confused with the sentence that false ego is fooled. Maybe that's why.
Fooled or false ego is impacted. False ego
Yeah.
will need to jhukna padega. False ego will need to bend.
I got it now. Okay.
Fooled, yeah, I agree. Fooled nahi, but maybe will need to, क्या बोलेंगे?
Hurt, false ego
ego
is
will
hurt.
hurt. ठीक है? All right. So there are three types of evidence: pratyaksha, anumana, and shabda. So pratyaksha is something which we can see with our senses. See means see, hear, touch, whatever. Anuman is logic, rational analysis, and shabda is just through hearing. Okay. So material knowledge, and I'm sure you have heard all this pratyaksha, anuman, and shabda, right? For anybody, is this brand new? For anybody, is this brand new terminology? Okay. So in material knowledge, it goes like this, isn't it? Let's just take physics or science, right? First, you do experiments and you see with your eyes. You take measurements, you take whatever, readings. So your pratyaksha praman is perfect, let us say. Then you can do some analysis based on this, correct? So for example, gravity, you do gravitational experiments on Earth and all that. And then you do some anuman, you do some rationalization or analysis that if the gravitation is this much here, then on the moon, the gravitation must be that much. All right. Now, please remember, my dear devotees, before man went on the moon, and I do believe man went on the moon, we can have that discussion later, at least on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th missions, not maybe in Apollo 11, but in later missions, definitely man went on the moon. Anyway, before man went on the moon, they had no idea what is the value of the gravity or gravitational constant, whether it is the same as Earth or not. Big G, 6.67 times 10 to the power minus 11 or whatever. But they did whatever possible experiments, but direct experiment on the moon had not been done because this is the first time you are going there. So by great amount of anuman, they built the satellites, they built all the infrastructure, the space suits, everything was built with the assumption that it is the same. And it turned out to be the same. Later on, after man landed on moon, they figured out it is the same. But till that point, it was anuman. If it was not the same, our Neil Armstrong would have been long dead on the moon. His grave would have been on the moon, not on Earth. Are you following? So that is called anuman, and they happen to be right. So that is good. And then it becomes shabda, which means your science books. Then it becomes, and then you start trusting the shabda. All right. You don't do every science experiment yourself, but you trust that the shabda is correct. But anytime you have a doubt on the shabda, you can always go back to pratyaksha. Are you following? But in spiritual knowledge, it is the other way around. You have to start with shabda. If you ask pratyaksha pramana, where is God? There is no, show me God, then I will write a book saying God exists. That is how it happens in science. Show me there is gravity, then I will write a book called Gravity Exists. Fine. But it cannot work in spiritual knowledge. You have to accept the shabda. This is step number 1. Then anuman, then you have to do your analysis of that shabda and do the practices, do the experiments. At that point, you do the experiment with just shabda pramana. So you do your sadhana very nicely, your bhakti, and then you can get darshan of Bhagwan in front of you. Like Rupa Goswami got, Radharani brought the kheer directly to Rupa Goswami. Isn't it? Then you get pratyaksha pramana. That yes, God came in front of me. So it starts with shabda, then anuman, then. So what is this shabda? Since shabda is number 1, this shabda is coming from the Vedic knowledge. Otherwise, if you want to make this as number one, you will be permanently lost. If this was number one, first show me God, then I will believe. Then you will be permanently lost. You will never be able to understand anything beyond material realm. The only way to understand God is to go from shabda to anuman to pratyaksha. All right. And that is why, this is why Vedas. Why you need Vedas. And of course, if you ask the question, why do I need to know about Bhagavan? That then, then there is a bigger problem. Then why are you in this class? Go eat, drink and be merry. Khao, piyo, mast raho. Bhakti Shastri kyun kar rahe ho? So that cannot be the question for this class. Why should I know? Why should I learn about Vedas? Because hopefully you have seen through material life that material life is not fully satisfying. It is not providing all the happiness I want. You are looking for the param drishtva nivartante, the higher taste. Bhagavad Gita 2.59. So if you want higher taste, you can look towards the Vedas, and Vedas will expect you to accept the shabda. All right. So that is why we need Vedas. Okay. So let us see. So I think I have covered everything. So I will just quickly, we will end the class in 2-3 minutes. Please, if you let me know if you have questions, but
I have a question, sir.
Yeah, 1 second. So let me, so what I had covered is in para 1 to 5 of Srila Prabhupada's purport, we have why Vedas are needed. That is answered. And the answer is because through pratyaksha, we cannot get our answers. You have to start from shabda for the higher truth. For ordinary truth, pratyaksha can give you answer, how to make money. Pratyaksha can tell you the answer. Work hard or whatever. Kill somebody, steal, whatever you want, you can make money. So, but for anything beyond the material realm, you have to go with shabda, and Vedas are the shabda. That's why you need Vedas. Then para 6 to 7, what are the Vedas? So that also we covered. They give certain universal truths coming from God. Then para 8 to 9, basically Srila Prabhupada is writing that shabda is greater than pratyaksha. Pratyaksha or anuman. (10 to 11), Srila Prabhupada is writing that for material realm, pratyaksha is okay. Pratyaksha is good enough. Now, in many cases, even for material realm, pratyaksha is not good enough, because there is law of karma. Very, famous question is, why do bad things happen to good people? So in school, you have been taught that, okay, be a nice person, work hard, you will, get the whatever results. But bad things happen to good people. So sometimes you have to resort to shabda even for material realm. Why are bad things happening to me? Maine kya kiya? So for that also you have to sometimes resort to shabda. But for most things, pratyaksha is good enough. But for transcendental realm, only shabda is relevant or useful. Then para number 12, that Krishna is the goal of the Vedas. Now, the Vedas spend a lot of time describing how to make material progress slowly. Slow material progress through dharma, artha, kama. And finally, if you do that for a very, very, very long time, millions of lifetimes, then you will gradually progress to moksha. So you have to be in this cycle of dharma, artha, kama, and slowly you move towards moksha. Gradual progress happens. 90% of the Vedas are that. Tiny percent of the Vedas are elaborating that Krishna is the ultimate goal. So that conclusion is hidden in the Vedas, but our acharyas and rishis bring it out more clearly, for example, in Srimad Bhagavatam. And para number 13 and 14 are describing the history of the Vedas, which also we have covered. So that is the breakdown of the purport by Srila Prabhupada. And I think that covers more or less everything. Please read the purport. Not purport, I mean the introduction. And yeah, you will get more details. And I think most of you or all of you have the Subodhini. If not, that is also a useful book. And I will also upload a couple of documents to the Google Classroom. The new people, I will add you to Google Classroom in a week or so. So don't worry. I will post that PDF on the WhatsApp also. A couple of reading guides are there. So I will post that. Yeah. So all these resources you can use and get better understanding of Īśopaniṣad. Okay, now questions. So we are done with the sort of whatever I had to say.
Sir, I had two questions. One is who wrote Vedas and how do we understand the history? You said 13 and 14 is about the history. So
Vedas are coming from Bhagavan Krishna himself, given to Brahmaji, who gave it to Narad Muni, who gave it to Vedavyas. That is the disciplic succession. And they have been there from time immemorial. They are beginningless. Anadi, it is called. Anadi means no beginning. So Adi means beginning. Anadi means no beginning. But it was put in writing by Vyasadeva. So that is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself in the first, in the 6th chapter, I think it is mentioned, or the 7th chapter, that Vyasadeva divided the Vedas were very big. And so first of all, he put it into writing because he knew in Kali Yuga, people cannot remember. It was passed down by memory. But people will not be able to remember anymore. So he put it in writing for our benefit, and he divided it and gave it to his 4 disciples. The name of those 4 disciples is also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto. I don't know the exact verse. I think it is chapter 6 or 7 somewhere.
and at some point of time, sir, do the spiritual knowledge leads to the, I mean, you said pratyaksha. So you start seeing things pratyaksha as well, right? In front of you.
It's a very, very advanced stage, not in. Okay. So what's your question?
That means material and spiritual will merge together at some point of time for advanced, when you have the advanced knowledge.
You will see Bhagavan in front of your eyes, and that is pratyaksha pramana. Pramana means evidence. So you will get the evidence with your eyes that Bhagavan exists. But that is a very, very, very advanced stage. Like Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva, have you heard the story of Dhruva? No? So, he did this meditation and for a long time. And then he could get the darshan of Lord Narayan or Lord Vishnu right in front of his eyes. And even few hundred years ago, Sri Rupa Goswami got darshan of Srimati Radharani. It is mentioned. Any other question? Okay. So, okay, any other questions? There are some questions. Yeah. So one question is, there are measurements mentioned in the Vedas about the soul as 100,000th the tip of the hair and so on, 1/10,000th. But the question is how to measure it. So yes, that is the problem, that it cannot be measured in a pratyaksha way, in a way that is accessible to our 5 senses. So measurement is there, but we cannot measure it. Okay. The way to answer it like this, again, those who are interested in the scientific aspects and all, measurement meaning, for those who are, science people, please pay attention. Measurement can be there. Let us say, I say 1 inch, whatever, right? If you are living in flat land, I hope you understand what is flat land. In a 2-dimensional world, there is a very good book called Flatland. Go read it. 1 inch dimension exists even in a 2-dimensional world. But what if it is a 1 inch cube, 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch? A person living in flat land will have no access to understanding what is a 1 inch cube, even though the measurement is given as 1 inch. No access at all. So just giving a unit of measurement, inch, does not give you the complete understanding in your realm of access to being able to carry out that measurement, because you don't have access. For one way is that you don't have access to that higher dimension. So that is one answer, and this I am giving this answer based on the sort of the analysis and thought process of Sadaputa Prabhu, who we all respect a lot. Okay, there are no other questions that I see here, so we will. Anything else? Okay, so I will stop recording. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.